Right, today we are looking at day 1 of chapter 4, topic 13. Well, this is a 2-day topic. Here are the notes for this topic. We're not going to be using all of these notes today, but you can pause the video here and copy these or take a screenshot of them, or even download the PowerPoint from Canvas and use them. So before we go into this topic called completing the square, which is what we're looking at, solving quadratics by completing the square, we've learned how to solve quadratics by factoring. This is a new method called completing the square. And before we can do this method, we have to be able to do something. We have to be able to recognize a perfect square trinomial. So let's think back to factoring. A perfect square trinomial is a trinomial, a quadratic, that has the same two factors. So for instance, if we look at x squared plus 4x, if we look at x squared plus 6x plus 9, and we try to factor this, 9 up top, 6 in the bottom, the numbers that their product are 9 and sum are 6 are 3 and 3, then we would see that this factors into x plus 3, x plus 3. And they have the same two factors, so we would say that it factors into x plus 3 squared. This is called a perfect square trinomial because it factors into the same two factors. Now, there is a relationship between all of these numbers, the 3, the 6, and the 9. The relationship is that if you add the 3 to itself, you should get the b term. And if you multiply, that's 3 plus 3. And if you multiply the the 3 by itself, you should get the c term, which is 3 times 3. And this will always be the relationship that perfect square trinomials have. Is that this number right here is twice this number gives you the middle term, and this number times itself gives you the last term. Another way of looking at it, x squared plus 6x plus 9. Another way of looking at it, this factors into x plus 3 squared. Another way of looking at it is that to go from this number to this number, from 6 to 3, that would be half of 6. It'd be a half of 6, 1/2 times 6. And then to go from this number to this number, you would multiply it by itself. Half of 6 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. So these have a relationship that half of this number is this number, and this number times itself is this number. And they should always have that relationship. So if I have any of these three numbers, then I can find the other number. So if I know what 6 is, I can find this number. And if I can find this number, then I can find this number. I can find this number by splitting the 6 in half. And I can find this number by multiplying that 3 times itself to get 9. So for instance, let's look at number 1. What I want to do is I want to find the value that would go here at the end that would make this a perfect square trinomial. And then I also want to know what this would factor to. So x squared plus 8x plus something will make this a perfect square trinomial. Once I find that something, then I will know how to factor it, and it will have the same two factors. So first, I know that if this is a perfect square trinomial, it should have both the same factors, x plus 4 and x plus 4, because 4 plus 4 is 8. So I know that if this is a perfect square trinomial, If I fill this in with the right number, then it should factor into x plus 4, or x plus 4 squared. If I want to know what that number is, I just need to multiply 4 by itself, 4 times 4. So that number would have to be 16. So the perfect square trinomial is x squared plus 8x plus 16. That's the perfect square trinomial. The factored form is x plus 4 squared. So this is factored, and this is the perfect square. And these are the two things that we want to know. We want to know this and this. And those would be our two answers. So let's take a look at the next one. The next one says x squared minus 16x, and then we want to know what is the value that would replace the c that would make this a perfect square trinomial. So we're looking for x squared minus 16x plus blank, and we want to know also what is the factored form of the perfect square trinomial of this form. Alright, so if this is a perfect square trinomial, then I know the factored form is going to be x and then half of negative 16, which is minus 8. So it would factor into x minus 8 squared if I fill this in with the proper number. It will factor into x minus 8 squared. The proper number here should just be 8 times 8. This number times itself, so this should be 64. And that's it. That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I did. As long as we can fill in this number and write the factored form, that's what we want to be able to do. We want this number, and we want the factored form. Let's try some more. So we got x squared minus 10x plus c. So we want to fill that in. We know that this is going to factor into x minus 5 squared, because negative 5 is half of negative 10. So we know that this should be the factored form. And if this is the factored form, then the number that we would have to have go here would be 5 times 5, which is 25. So this is the missing value. This is the factored form once we fill in that missing value. So if we fill in 25 for c, then this will become a perfect square trinomial, and it will factor into x minus 5 squared. Alright, number 4 is let's take a look at number 4. So we got x squared plus 2x, and then we want to fill in the missing value. We also want to know how this factors. Alright, well we know the number that goes here is just going to be half of this middle term. So we know it's going to factor, half of 2 is 1, so we know it's going to factor into x plus 1 squared. We just need to know what value would we have to put here so that it will factor into x plus 1 squared. And the value that we need here would just have to be 1 times 1, which is 1. So this would be the perfect square trinomial, and this would be the factored form. Here are just some examples of a bunch of different factored perfect square trinomials and their corresponding factored forms. So x squared plus 8x plus 16 factors into x plus 4 squared. X squared minus 20x plus 100 factors into x minus 10 squared. And you can check these. Half of 8 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Half of negative 20 is negative 10. Negative 10 times negative 10 is 100. Half of negative 1 is negative 1/2. Negative 1/2 times negative 1/2 is 1/4. Half of 3/2 is 3/4. 3/4 times 3/4 is 9/16. Half of 7/5 is negative 7/10, and negative 7/10 times negative 7/10 is 49/100. So the problems tonight are going to ask you to find the value of c, and then it's going to ask you to find the perfect square to actually factor it once you have the value of c. So what we just did a second ago, you're finding the missing value, and then you're telling me what it factors into, and it should have the same two factors. That's page 53, numbers 9 through 14.